Let me open a special meeting, City Council of City of Pearland, for February the 25th, 2019. First item is call to order of this Planning and Zoning Council meeting with the City of Pearland, and I will call for the roll call of the individuals. The City Council has two individuals that are missing from our agenda tonight, Councilmember Reed and Councilmember Moore. And I ask the Chairman of the Planning Commission to give you a roll call.
I'd like to also call a meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Let the record show that Troy Pradia and Daniel Tunstall are not present. All other members are accounted for.
Okay. Moving to item number 4 on our agenda, introduction of the agenda and format of hearing. Moving to joint public hearing number 1, as Chairman of the Planning Commission to present this for our consideration.
Joint special meeting number 1, a request by Arif Meridia, applicant on behalf of Gobbler Investment, Pearland owner, for approval of a conditional use permit to allow a smoke and vaping product shop on 1.02 acres tract zone general commercial district. General location is 2002 North Main Street, Pearland, Texas.
That information in the record. Let's move to item A on our agendas, and I'm using the same agenda you are if you can figure out the way it's set up. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission. Good evening. I've got a few housekeeping items. I want to just bring it up. If any one of the public is here tonight for any of the cases that are on the screen, French Quarter PD, the Broadway and Kinsley PD, as well as the Rice Dryer Commerce PD, and the conditional use permit, the Houston Chinese Church. All these 4 items have been notified for, but they're not on the agenda tonight, so they will not be discussed in this meeting. You're welcome to stay and attend the meeting, but these items will not be discussed tonight.
Okay.
Moving on for the format of the meeting. So each item that we have tonight on the agenda that will have a public hearing will be introduced by the chairman of the commission. Then it will be followed by staff report. That staff report will be followed by applicant presentation. Then the public will have a chance to get their comments, whether in support or opposition. If you're going to get up and speak, please come forward to the microphone. Please state your name and address for the record, and please be brief and to the point. And you'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Also, make sure to complete a speaker's card and give it to the recording secretary. Then that will be followed by City Council, Commission, and a staff discussion. After that, the case will be adjourned. After the joint special meeting, the City Council will vote to approve the request as presented, approve it with conditions, deny the request, or table the request. That will conclude my. As I stated before, there's one item on the agenda tonight, and that's the conditional use permit for the Imperial Smoke and Vaping Shop. This is a request for approval of a conditional use permit to allow smoke and vaping products shop on an acre tract zone general commercial GC district. The applicant proposes to locate a retail smoke and vaping products shop inside 1,000 square feet lease space within the existing retail center on the subject property. The proposed use is classified in the Unified Development Code as a cigar, tobacco, or e-cigarette shop, which is defined as a shop that specializes in the sale of cigars or other tobacco products, including e-cigarettes and vaping lounges. A cigar, tobacco, or e-cigarette shop is allowed within the general commercial district by conditional use permit. The subject property is located at 2002 Main Street. It is bounded by the Pearland ISD Administration Building to the north and by a new restaurant that's currently under construction on the south side. And it's also bounded by two undeveloped lands to the east and west. This is kind of an aerial map and also showing the zoning of the property, which is general commercial. This is a future land use plan, and it shows the property being designated as a business commercial on the future land use map. This is a recorded plat of the subject property on the screen here, and this is the site plan for the subject property. Shows that the existing development was developed as a 7,000 square foot single-story retail building in 1994. And this slide shows the proposed use conformity to the city codes. And this slide here shows the proposed use conformity to the criteria of approval that's listed in the Unified Development Code. And the Development Review Committee reviewed this case, and there was really any issues or objections by the committee. Staff recommends approval of the request with one condition, and that condition is the maximum area for the proposed use shall be limited to the area of the lease agreement, which is approximately about 1,000 square feet. That concludes the staff report, Mayor.
That completes your report?
That is correct.
That information in the record. Let's move to item number A2, which is applicant presentation. Is the applicant here today? No. Yes. Please come down and introduce yourself and tell us what you got planned. And snug up to the mic so I can hear you.
So I'm the representative of Goldberg Investments, the property owner, and this is Arif, who is the hopefully business owner of that.
Could you move in closer to the mic?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't really know I would even have to speak today. This is very new for me, but one thing I will say is, according to my understanding, that this is a zoning issue. We're not zoned as retail where there is a Walmart across the street from us, and there's a big shopping center adjacent to us with the big lots, as well as a Office Depot. And for some reason, that our tract is not zoned as retail. Given that, and hopefully we can get this approval for this use here.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor. My name is Arif Meridia, and we are trying to open up a vape shop. And I currently have 4 locations in other cities, and we strictly don't sell any loose tobaccos or anything that goes against that underage people can use it. So we strictly stick to the vaping products. Those are like mods and stuff like that. So there is no issue with the tobacco product, anything like that. So we're hoping you guys approve us, and thank you very much. Thank you.
The first gentleman who stepped up would please identify himself. This is a public hearing and we didn't hear your name.
I apologize. My name is Brian Bernstein.
Thank you, sir.
We just give us your name too again.
My name is Arif Meridia. Thank you.
We're recording this. We'd like to have your name to go with the talk so that we'll be able to put the two together. Thank you. Moving on our agenda to item number A2, applicant presentation, which has just been handled. Moving to item number 3, with persons wish to speak for or against this proposed request. Councilmember Perez, to all those individuals that would like to do that.
Hey, Mayor, I have one individual that's asked to speak on this item, Mr. James Presley. Mr. Presley, if you'll please state your name and address for the purpose of the record. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
My name is James Presley. Address is 2724 Chantel Street. That's Shauntel. That's here in Pearland, 77581. So I don't have really a ball in either side of the court for this. I don't smoke, I don't vape. However, what I did wanted to come, because I thought more people were going to speak other than myself, was to discuss what powers the government should have, and whether we're talking about state government or city government here, that to approve or deny this on what basis of what people were going to argue against it. But obviously there's not people arguing against it. However, what I was going to say is that if you want to look at a map, if you want to look at a map of smoke shops in the area, if you want to look I believe 3 miles down from here, you will find that there is a smoke shop exactly like the one that's being proposed. And if the government, if the city government, City of Pearland, was to deny this permit, I feel that the City of Pearland would be choosing winners or losers in this market of smoke shops and vape shops, rather than allowing the free market to play out and allowing this kind of business here in the City of Pearland, which is already here in the City of Pearland. I believe someone just told me that there were 8 locations here in the City of Pearland. So that's really all I have to say about the powers of the city in this matter. And I believe, even though I don't really have a ball near the court, that it should be approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Moving in our agenda to item number,
I'm going to ask if there's anybody else.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask if there's anybody else who wants to speak. Is there anybody else that would like to speak either for or against this proposed conditional use permit? Second time, is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this proposed conditional use permit? Third and final time, is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this proposed conditional use permit? Looks like we can move on, Mayor.
Okay. And information in the record. Let's move to item B on our agenda, Planning Commission, Council, and Staff discussion. I'll ask the Chair of the Planning Commission.
Mary?
This is not the kind of businesses I foresee in Pearland, but I do have a problem with the fact that we already have some here, and letting another one come in would mean they've got competition and they'd have to work it out for themselves. But it is not awfully close to the school district building, so kind of confused about whether that's a good idea or not.
Yeah, unless I hear something to the contrary, I really don't see a problem if there's not a lot of objection for this thing.
I heard one of the 2 speakers for the applicant presentation say that they had certain products only that were, reading through the reviews online, it indicated otherwise at your other shops. So I'm a little bit confused about that. And I appreciate what Mr. Presley said. However, I think he made the case for not needing another vape shop, actually, when he said there was 8, I think you said 8 stores. I think that's really enough. I mean, Pearland's not a huge place. It doesn't need more vape shops. So in my opinion, I think it would be a no for me.
Well, I'm not a fan of the vape shops, but, you know, I really don't have a problem with it going on that side of town. You know, they don't have anything out there. You know, there's a lot of things that go on here in town that I really don't agree with, but, you know, it's free market, so I'm going to let it go.
Even though it is close to the school building, it is at least an administration building where adults are present during the day, not necessarily children very often anyway. I don't really have if one's going to go in, I don't necessarily have a problem with it going in that part of town. And that completes our comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving to our City Council, Councilman Carbone.
Same thing, not a huge fan of it, but, I mean, the property owner has a right to lease who they want to, and we'll let competition figure out the winners and losers. I know the school district's dealing with vaping at a alarming rate, and I don't know that voting down one additional store is going to change that. So that's my comments.
Councilmember
No comment.
Reed? No comment? Councilmember Perez?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things that were brought up by the landowner and the speaker. So it is zoned retail. It is zoned the exact same as Walmart. If somebody wanted to put a vape shop inside Walmart, they would have to do the same thing. So there's no difference in the zoning. It's the vape shops are part of citywide. They're required for a conditional use permit. Other uses also require that. So to the statement about winners and losers, and look, at one point they were not required by a conditional use permit. Now they are. Same thing with liquor stores. Same thing with gas stations. As these become more prolific and people show that their objection to it, we as representatives of our constituents add these uses under the conditional use because people have asked us to take a closer look at it. People have asked us to take a closer look at these particular uses. While we didn't have a bunch of people that came out and spoke against it, I did receive 2 emails, I think to all of us council members stating that they had objections to it. But I think in general, though I'm not a fan of the use, it's not near a neighborhood. It is near a school district facility, but it's not a school. It's not an illegal use. So while I'm on the fence, I'm leaning towards voting for it.
Mm-hmm. Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. So I have some questions that are, if the applicant can come back up, just a couple questions about some of your other locations that I pulled up online. Just on those locations, you had quite a bit of signage in the windows, lots of LED lights around the doors, things like that. Is that something that you're...
Landowner, like Brian already told us that we don't want any kind of signs. Just the big sign that goes on the top is going to be the only sign we're going to put up.
Okay, so there wouldn't be any flashing
No other
lights on the
signs.
doors, nothing
No,
like
sir.
that? Okay, and that's already a condition that you said you've made with the landowner?
We go according to the landowner, the way they approve it. So before putting up any sign, we have to go through Brian. He's going to approve that sign. So he has already told us that no window signs or anything like that.
Okay. And then I had some other things when I was researching this. Like Mr. Presley, I I don't smoke or anything. I really don't have much experience with this, but I do see some of my employees have kind of used these, and we've had to tell them you got to use it on your own time. So we have arguments, and of course it leads me to read about it as to whether or not they can use it indoors. And so some of the things I found, there was an FDA safety tip that was put out, and it was actually just a few months ago, regarding potential battery explosion issues with some of these devices.
Yeah, those are called MAC mards. There are two. There are regulated MAC mards, and the one that explodes, which you have heard about. Those are MAC mards, which we don't carry.
You don't. Okay, so it's a specific type.
Yeah, specific types. Those few people carry around, but we don't carry that.
Okay. And are there other types of what types of products? I guess because y'all said non-tobacco, but what other?
Like we don't carry cigarettes, cigars, or anything like that. Those are convenience store. When you walk in a convenience store, you can find cigars and cigarettes. We don't carry that.
Because I was looking at your other locations and I saw some items that were on the shelf that I'm just not really clear what those items are used for. So I don't know if you could expand upon some of the items that
we basically carry the items that helps you vape. So they make mards, and you put your own liquids.
What is a MAR? Is that
a MAR? A MAR. It's just to vape the product. So we don't directly deal with tobaccos, for example, cigarettes and cigars. So we don't. So It's a vaping product. Basically, it's an accessories to smoke vape, to vape the product. That's it.
Okay, but are you saying those are the battery operated?
Yeah, they're battery operated.
Some of the products I saw were not battery operated. Can you expand on some of the other products that you might potentially offer or carry? I mean, this is based on your other locations.
Right.
I'm just trying
So like you said earlier, you mentioned about the battery exploding.
no, I'm talking about the items that don't have batteries, for instance. So you already addressed the battery issue, but
Right.
you had some items on there that were made of glass and don't have
There are
batteries.
there are many little things. For example, incense. You can like glass pipes and few other things like that. So they help you smoke the product, but we don't actually sell the product. We sell the accessories to smoke the products.
So you don't. Okay, so the vape product you don't sell,
We sell vape products, yeah.
but you said that you sell the accessories to help you smoke the product, but you don't smoke the product. I mean, that you don't sell the product.
Yeah, we don't, yeah.
What is the
So
product?
you can buy tobacco, your own tobacco at a tobacco shop,
Okay.
but you need something to smoke that tobacco.
So you're saying you sell accessories for other things that you would smoke that are not vape
Yeah.
related? Okay.
Mostly what we are focusing on is vaping. So we'll be selling vaping products and few other items which are like novelty items, for example.
Okay.
We also have Bluetooth headphones and stuff like that too that we sell. It's called novelty items.
Okay.
We'll be selling those kind of items.
Okay. Well, I guess my only other comment, I guess, I can't remember if it was Daryl or not who said this. I was looking down, but we were talking about Highway 35. I think if we are eventually trying to improve the look of Highway 35, like I said, I don't know that this necessarily would improve the look and feel of 35, of that corridor coming into the city. But if you're fine with additional potential restrictions that maybe we can discuss up here and make sure that it fits in line with a certain look and feel, then perhaps maybe, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence, so I'll let the rest of the council.
Okay, so that's something to do with the property owner, right?
A little?
No, it would be something that we would discuss, but we'll get to it later.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank
A
you.
little?
Thank you, Mayor. I think what Councilman Hernandez was trying to get the applicant to say was that they sell bongs. I'm not a smoker or a vapor. I'm not a fan of these type of stores, but I'm a free market person. There's no churches nearby, no schools. So I really don't have a problem with it. I think the vaping's a fad, and I think as the fad fades, the competition will eliminate a lot of these stores. So I'll be a vote for it.
Councilmember Owens?
Get this mic on. Can some of them be used for drug paraphernalia? No, they can't. Anything you say?
Can you go back up to the podium too? Sorry.
Sir?
Yeah, any of the things that you sell there, could it be used for drug paraphernalia to use drugs?
We don't intend to sell it like that, but they are strictly made for tobaccos. So I don't know if I can comment on that, what people do with it. But if I can tell you this, like convenience stores, they sell baby bottles, right? For example, they sell tire gauges. People use for different purposes. But they are used to, the purpose is to check the tire pressure. Same way we don't sell it for drugs and stuff like that. It's strictly for tobacco.
But for tobacco, okay. Maybe the police department knows better than I do about some of this stuff.
And like I said, we are mainly focused on vaping.
Yeah.
So that's our main goal. All our 4 locations we have, it's like 90% all we sell is vape products.
Yeah.
The rest of the stuff we have is more of a novelty stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know that my biggest concern too, and I know my son uses it and all of that, but you can get various levels of nicotine
Yeah.
in there. I mean, all the way up to being as much as a cigarette or cigar, either one. To be able to do that.
We carry up to 6 mg nicotine, so it goes from 0 to 6 mg. The good thing about vaping is it doesn't have the bad stuff what cigarette has. For example, tar, and there are many other different things in cigarette.
But they say that this is number one cause for younger kids to start vaping and then going into cigarettes and what have you. That's a leading thing for them to do on that, to be able to do it. And, I understand what all went on and everything. My concern is, we got different expectations for the city of Pearland and the growth that we have. And like you say, we got 8 of those shops now, and probably I'd say the biggest part of those 8 are just beyond the railroad track from here over there. I feel the same thing on gas stations and liquor stores and things of that nature also, about how many do you want? How many do you want here? And I understand it's a free enterprise system, and people will go out of business if they don't get business on it. But my concern is that younger kids get involved in it, then they go into cigarettes, and then they go into having cancer and everything else. And so it's a big problem.
See,
I think it is.
With the kids, we have strict policy of nobody under 18 is allowed in the shop. And second thing, we don't sell cigarettes. Cigarettes are the number one cause that leads you to cancers. The product we sell only contain vegetable glycerin and nicotine. That's about it. There are mainly three items in vape shop.
Yeah.
Cigarette, on the other hand, has so many bad things in them, and we don't sell cigarettes or cigars or any loose tobaccos.
Well, I was just saying it, even not selling them, but it leads to that for some people.
Yeah, that's why we have
Be able to
strict,
take it,
strict
and do
policy
that.
of nobody under 18 in the shop.
Okay. Well, those are my concerns, and reason for that, I won't vote for it, to be honest with you. On a lot of things I don't vote for because I think that, we can only stand so many of the different ones in there and different things. And so, like I said, I voted against liquor stores and I voted against different, for gasoline stations. I think, we got them on every corner now. But there's so much, and I think we got a certain limited amount of property here left in the city of Pearland. And I'm just looking for better developments coming in of that. So it's, it's not a problem with you or anything else. It's my own problem I have with that, and I just want to let you know I was going to vote. Thank you.
Just briefly, Mayor. Well, maybe not briefly. It's tough because we're not often faced with these types of decisions here. Where we have to make, or we have to think about kind of the social issues as well. With respect to free market, young man got up there and said that, competition and obviously to let competition be. And I'm 100% with you. I mean, competition should be competition. I mean, you have gas stations right across the street from each other. You have Starbucks right across the street from each other in some situations. When we're looking at the city as a whole, kind of like we did with the gas stations and the liquor stores, there comes a point where you start looking at, okay, well, how often do we have these? Let's say, for instance, we allow strip clubs in our city. We allow strip clubs, and strip clubs started opening up every single corner or every other corner, every mile radius. Then you start to get to the point where it's like, all right, well, what do we want Pearland to portray? You're right. We can't. You can go to a gas station. You can go to this.
Remember, we lost quorum.
No, we didn't. Because I can't.
We have 6.
Oh, sorry. Never mind. My apologies.
So you can go to this gas station right down the street, Busy Bee, and they sell all kind of pipes and stuff. As soon as you walk in, I think almost every gas station and maybe not at Buc-ee's, but a lot of gas stations in Pearland, they're no longer owned by like Exxon or Shell. They're owned by whomever, and they sell whatever they want to in there. And so you start to look at that and say, well, is this just the norm, or is this stuff that we're going to have to accept? and so to I guess point the finger at you for starting up a shop that's specific to that is not necessarily the right thing. On the other hand, though, it's okay. Well, how do we want our city to continue to look if we put so many of those shops, and I think that you said it was like 3 miles. The next one is away. I'm not sure if somebody on planning knows, but the next one might be a couple miles away. Do we want to become known as a city that has a lot of this or a lot of that? I guess I'm just saying what makes this decision tough. We're all for free market, but we are all also wanting to make sure that we have input and make decisions based on how but how the citizens would want the city to look down the line. And so, Councilmember Hernandez asked about flashing lights, and some other folks, asked about other little things that that you're going to be selling. Yeah, it can be used for drugs. Yeah, I mean, that's no secret. It can be used. The stuff in there can be used for a lot of different things. We're not going to stop drug use up here. And if they can't find it at your store, they're going to get it somewhere else, right? At the gas station, at the Busy Bee. And so, it makes this decision very, very hard, and any other decision like it. Same thing with the liquor stores. Councilmember Owens is not for any more liquor stores. But I mean, are we going to sit here and say that liquor stores can't exist in the city? I mean, the voters voted for that. They allowed it. I'm still kind of undecided. I wasn't going to say anything at first, but I'm undecided. I don't know if any other council members have any other comments. I know Councilmember Hernandez had some follow-up things that he wanted to say to you, but I just kind of wanted to give you a better idea of what makes the decision difficult for some of us.
If I may, that I currently have 4 locations. I have seen customer coming in, talking to me about vaping, and they used to smoke cigarettes before, and they have finally quit the cigarettes. So it's helping people to not smoke cigarettes. You know how dangerous cigarettes are. So basically, we are helping other people quit cigarettes. They start with 3 mg of nicotine. Eventually, they go down to 0 mg with no nicotine. So it's helping people out there. Vaping is really helping. So that's going to help more people, I guess.
Hernandez? Reyes?
It's okay with me. So a couple of things on the, we talked about the neon signs being, as a possible condition in the CUP, forbidding the neon signs or forbidding signage on the window for this shop. Remind me, is there a current prohibition in the corridor overlay against neon signs that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of any prohibition on neon signs.
Okay, I think if we do entertain it when we go to when we offer this this motion, I think we'll look to add that to the conditional use permit. I think we also probably need to look at adding that as a strict prohibition because it does come up often in the UDC. Having the neon signs are just distracting. It's not very attractive. I think echoing some of the things that were said, none of us are naive. We know what some of these products are used for. I know you're not naive. You know what some of these products are used for. I think we don't need to pretend as if none of us know. But it's still a legal operation. It's allowed. If it was in front of a neighborhood or if it was near a facility that was a particular sensitivity, I would feel strongly against this. But it's on a major road. I think I'm fine with the use. I just kind of echo what Member Little said. I think it's a fad. I don't think these shops are going to stay open very long. The tobacco store that was over by, I believe, Conn's closed just because it was there wasn't very much market. So, without a whole bunch of people asking us not to approve this, I don't feel it's right for me to pass judgment. Again, we all know what happened, what some of the products are used for. That's all I have.
Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, the additional signage, I would also like to see if we can add that as a condition to this. Like, I just basically want to limit it to an open sign at this point.
We will. Yeah.
And then you had mentioned no one under 18 is currently allowed.
Nobody under 18 is allowed. We have a big sign on the door, and nobody under 18 is allowed in the shop. And as soon as we see somebody who looks under 18, we ID them right away.
Is that something that we can add as a condition as well?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay.
It'd be contrary to your first restriction of only a open sign on it, though. They're
Okay.
they're wanting to put
Fair
a
point.
sign. Yeah. And you might want to,
Excuse me, lighted signs, how about that?
I think that that's a great way to phrase that. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then looking at this a little bit more, I did have a couple other things. I know you stressed the health angle that you're helping people quit smoking, but at the same time, you have other accessories in there that you yourself had said are used for smoking tobacco. So I kind of see that as a cancellation, looking at it from the health perspective and coming from a background of health education. I mean, that's, I try to look at all the different angles and they kind of cancel one another out. I've also looked at some studies done by University of California, Riverside that talked about the need for an upgraded HVAC system to help filter out. It says that they did multiple studies that found that the residue from vape shops can leach into neighboring businesses. So there's that as well. I don't know if anybody up here cares to go that route, or even because of the battery, I found in addition to the FDA tips to help avoid vape battery explosions, as well as safety tips, they have explosion reports. There have been several BBC News articles here as well. You've got one from Reuters. I don't know if it's possible also if, for the sake of the building, if you had an increased firewall rating or a fire suppression system, something like that. I don't know if we have anything. I don't know if anybody from the fire department is, no? Okay. But at least I would like to see no one under 18 add as a condition, and no additional lighted signing beyond an open sign would be my two. So I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
Judge, further comments? Councilmember Carbone, did you have any further comments? Further comments?
No, I think I've said everything I was going to say and vote against it, so.
That information in the record then, let's,
Just one quick question. On the age restriction, is there already a state law that forbids under 18, people under the age of 18 from going into vape shops?
I believe the state law prohibits people from selling to people under 18. I don't know if it restricts their ability to enter the store. I'd have to do some more research on that, and if you need an answer for that, either we could table the item for later in the meeting as I do that, or come back another day.
No, I think we're fine moving forward. We can just add it as a condition if we're not sure.
okay. Moving in our agenda to item number C, I'll ask, which is City Council new business now. It has marked in from the discussion to a business item. And I'll ask Councilmember Perez to present this for our consideration.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action, resolution number R 2019-CUP 19-00001. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Mayor, I would move that we amend the motion to include a restriction of no signage, including lighted signage, on the outside of the proposed facility, to exclude only an open sign, and also move that we amend it to forbid anybody under the age of 18 from being able to enter the premises of this use.
Second.
We have a second. I'm sorry. Did you finish? We have a motion and a second.
One second. I believe those are written in the ordinance.
It's an amendment. We have an amendment to the motion, Mr. Secretary.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Little? Councilmember Moore is absent. Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0 on the amendment.
Okay, we now have an amended motion on the table. And you're handling?
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
With these conditions, aye, yes.
Councilmember Little? Councilmember Owens?
I think I've already declared no.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
No.
Motion passed 4-2.
If you look at your agenda, the item 5 says adjourn, and I will at this point adjourn the special joint meeting at 7:13. We'll be moving into the regular council meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, let me open a regular meeting, council meeting, the City Council of City of Pearland for Monday, February the 25th, 2019. If you'll please rise, we'll have an invocation by Councilmember Hernandez, and Alan Mueller will give us a pledge of allegiance.
Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. If you would, please bow your head and join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for yet another wonderful day. You know I love my thunder, so thanks for the wonderful show today. I appreciate it. And please help guide our decisions this evening as you do every evening that we are here. Please look over everyone that is in attendance tonight and the city as a whole. It's always a very personal thing to pray in public for me, and so sometimes I struggle with that, but it is important, I think, to bear my testimony before people, and I accept Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I hope that your light will shine upon everybody here tonight, and in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you. Please join me in the pledge of the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag?
Under the Texas flag,
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I want to thank all of you for being here. Appreciate your, always good to see some of our citizens in the audience as we go through the process of the activities of our city. And it's only 7:30, so we've got a lot of time left for midnight. As we press through our process here, let us go through the roll call, and we have all our council members here except Councilmember Moore. And we are here with all of our bright and shiny faces. Moving in our agenda to citizens' comments, Councilmember Perez, would you?
Thank you, Mayor. We have one application to speak, but it is on new business item number 2, so I will defer to that item. And
Okay.
we're ready to move forward, Mayor.
We have a lot of consent agenda items before we get to that point, so when we get there, I'll call on you to get to work. Moving to item number 4, which is the public hearings, which is held, and then the consent agenda, Councilmember, would you present this in your inimitable fashion?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd like to remove items M and
M.
M is Mary and N is in Nancy.
M-N. Okay.
Consideration and possible action, approval of consent agenda items A through L. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Secretary?
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, moving to council, item M.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution R 2019-63. So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Staff report on this item.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, and just so we're on the same, we're talking about M, Mike? Mike, thank you, sir. So this is a design award. We've got a groundwater storage as part of our system over at Alameda Road, FM 521. And this is for an additional tank. And the design services, professional services with Costello Engineering. And this project has been in the CIP, and look forward to getting this up and running. So we've got additional storage. It helps moderate our peak demands during the day, get these filled up overnight. And so overall for the system, it's something that's necessary.
Thank you,
That's all I
Mayor.
have, sir.
I'd
Council.
pull this because reviewing the numbers on this, it shows we're $1 million over budget, but we're going to correct that later. Can you expound on that?
Sure. As was mentioned, the estimates as we've gotten deeper into this, the materials and other things are adding up. And so the estimate that we had in the CIP was quite a bit lower. When we look at the capital improvement program for next year, we'll look at all the projects and the adds and subtracts and make the adjustments so that we've got the proper financing when the project actually comes time to construction. This is the design, as was noted, so we'll take a hard look at the what's spec'd out, but it's a lot. There's not a lot of give in these things. It kind of is what it is once we get to the award time, but we'll fix that and don't expect that to affect overall our financial models significantly.
Okay, thank you. And then looking at the aerial view showing this location, I was trying to zoom in, and are we having to put a sidewalk in along 521?
I'd have to defer to Robert.
Councilman Carbone, no, not with regards to a sidewalk. What we're doing there is, as City Manager Pearson stated, is that we have the new tank, and it's a 3 million gallon tank. It was larger than we had originally budgeted for. Back in the time when we were setting up this budget several years ago with the new water model we're working on, and also with the surface water treatment plant, we maximized this site to go from an additional 2 million gallons to an additional to 3 million gallons. So there was cost increase there. And then also associated with that is to get these pumps, as we're doing pump evaluations associated with the water model, to size these pumps correctly to service the entire area that this plant, along with the service area in Shadow Creek, serve. And so that's also included, and then also to make sure the generator is sized correctly to have full redundancy.
With this size of expansion, if this wasn't the city, if this was a business in town, would they be required to put a sidewalk in on 521?
Please also remember, too, is that with regards to that 521 is being the state highway or farm to market road, and that is being widened right now or planned to be widened with Fort Bend County as well and TxDOT. So those requirements would be part of that project.
Yeah, how would we treat that if somebody was to come in from the business side? You're getting backed into a corner, but I'm just we would force that down in some form or fashion onto a business, wouldn't we?
Let me get with John real quick.
I think actually it would be done the same way. If we know there's a capital improvement like there is with this one, a private company may contribute the cost into a future fund, but it'd be done the same way. We wouldn't make them, if we knew we were going to have an imminent capital project, because the grades will change, everything will change, as you probably expect. So, and this way, the project that's coming as another public project, it'll get that done, so.
Yeah, so are we having to allocate out of the CIP over to the sidewalk fund?
Well, again, because of it's a public project, they're going to be building that anyway, and so we wouldn't, it would be public dollars for public dollars. I mean, we'd be putting that in there for a project that wasn't going to require it for us.
Yeah.
We'll have a match. We'll participate in that one, 521.
I think we'll see an ask from Fort Bend County that's much in excess of the cost of a sidewalk. And of course, we're looking at different funding options for that. I think part of that ask is going to be possibly to have that TERS reimbursable.
Okay. It seems like ridiculous questioning, but that's what we would ask of any small businesses.
It is, and
it is ridiculous.
Mr. Pearson's correct. It is the ask, and Mr. Pearson's correct, and we've done this on many of our capital projects. If there's a pending capital project, the pending project pays into the sidewalk fund, and then that is allocated into that project to make sure we do meet the grades, and we don't ask them to put something in that gets torn out a few months or a couple of years later.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I think that was planned a number of years ago with the idea that once that tank is in, there's a water purification facility that's going in south of there that will feed water into that particular tank. So, and we promised a number of years ago that there'd be 3 tanks there for water storage capacity for increase in population. We'd do that as population increased to the point where we had to get out in front of it, make sure we had the water when people grew, so. Any further comment, Councilman Owens?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Is that water that we're using there, is that coming from the city of Houston? That's out of the pay or take contract that we have with the city of Houston on that side.
That's correct. It'll come from the East Side Water Plant for the city of Houston, and it is currently, we have the ability to take 1.6 million gallons a day, but then up to 6 million gallons a day as well.
Okay. When McCard goes through, one of the purposes was to take water that out of the city of Houston, which we bought into that plant there, and it was supposed to help us lower the cost, get rid of the one on the west side, and pump into there by taking that water line across. Is that right?
Councilman Owens, there was plans at that at one time. However, since we've been doing the water model for the past 8 months and taking a look at how we bring on the surface water treatment plant associated with this and doing a direct fill into the tanks and then repressurization out of these pump stations, the surface water plant will be providing water to that area. With regards to then the Alice plant, as you're saying, will then provide water to the east side of 288. So we're looking at splitting the system in half and creating 2 zones, with the zone being from Cullen West and Cullen East. And therefore, the ability will be then to manage the Alice plant and the water that's in that service area that Alice does feed will be on the east side. The surface water plant and also any wells associated in the west of Cullen will be servicing there. There will be an interconnect that we can go and bring water back and forth, but trying to minimize the water from the East Houston plant into this 521 plant.
Well, the whole point of us running that line across there was to eliminate the one out of Houston for the west side, because I guess it has gone up every year for the last 4 or 5 years on the cost.
That is a higher cost of water at the 521 plant, but there was never a plan to eliminate that as a source of water. It's always been part of our required needs, even or as we approach build out. But when we're not in max day demand on a normal day, we should be able to minimize our take out of that plant and thereby minimize the cost of the purchased water.
Okay. The other point too that I mentioned, the widening of 521, we're doing that out of the tours, our support with Fort Bend County.
No, sir. Fort Bend County sponsored that project in the Transportation Improvement Program, and it was selected for funding in the 2015 call for projects. And that initially was a 80-20 split. They've worked out a deal with TxDOT where Fort Bend County is going to accelerate the design and pay for 100% of the design, and then TxDOT's going to pick up the match on the construction, is our understanding. There is a local match on purchasing right-of-way, and Fort Bend County has indicated, but they have not actually requested funding on the match from the TERS to help fund that.
Yeah, early on, Commissioner Morales over there wasn't going to be able to do that because the portion that was in the City of Pearland right away over there, I think it was, I know you went and met with them a few times. It was between $450,000 and $500,000 for our part if we did the design, which TxDOT was going to pick up the 80%, I guess, of construction through there if they were able to go ahead and get it designed. And I talked to Commissioner Morales, and they've already issued the contracts for that design over there now. And so I was just wondering how close are we going to be to this property here when we do the redesign of 521? I mean,
I don't think they're that far along in the design, so I don't know how it's going to impact this property, but it's not going to impact anything that we're doing as part of this project.
are we going to be able to review those design with the county over there, Fort Bend County?
Yes.
You are? Okay. I think you had several meetings with the county engineer over there.
Yeah, well, we work. I've worked very closely with the county engineer for many years. So and so has Robert. So we're
okay. That's what I was wondering, when they go through with the design on this, if it's going to impact that, or if we're going to lose the two areas there on the 518.
I believe when Shadow Creek Ranch was platted, it allocated the right-of-way for that project.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other question or comment on this? It's okay. We do have motion second on the floor.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Moving in our agenda to item number excuse me. Councilor Carbone.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, Resolution R 2019-56. So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, sir. The city awarded, as part of one of our capital improvement projects, a fiber line that's integral to connecting up our various traffic signals, utilities. It's expensive work, but we did go out and bid that out. When we awarded that, after we awarded that, I should say, the apparent low bidder came back. Although they checked out everything and were ready to go forward, they told us that they were not able to perform the work at that pricing. And so we want to reject these bids, all of them. The next bidder up, is quite a bit more money as well. And so we'd like to just start over and, go back out in the market and get better prices, see what we can come up with. It's unfortunate because our project's not started like we planned. But we just think it's safest for us in the city and saving us at least some short-term pain by going forward at this time. That's all I have, sir.
Any other question or comment?
Mayor, I pulled it just so we get a little bit more detail. I mean, it's kind of odd that we see something that comes up and we reject everything. Did we have to use a consultant to go through and score the bids and do all the background checks and all that?
I don't believe we did on this one. John, do you know?
Councilman Carbone, this was a low bid contract. And so we did our due diligence with staff, talking with the vendor when we looked at and reviewed their bids, having concerns with regards to one of the line items. And they, at that time, had sent us a letter saying that they missed a bid and they wanted to pull their bid. And then we said, okay, well, we'll do that. And then we went round and round several times. And then so finally, after the length of time from the time you awarded the contract at council in December to today, we've decided just to go ahead and ask that you reject all bids. We are finishing up the design of another fiber run as part of this CIP year, and we'd just like to lump those two together for economy of scale.
Okay. All right. And in terms of what the bid bond, is it not worth trying to go after that?
Because the vendor said that they would do the job and go back and forth under advisement with legal counsel, it'd be better if we just rejected all bids at this time, because there could be the argument made that even though we're rejecting the bids, he could stand up and say that I will sign the contracts and do it, even though he's provided written letters and verbal indications either way. We just find it better at the end of the day to reject all bids and and rebid this job with the other one.
I mean, can't we get back to, I mean, that could happen. I mean, why require a bond? I mean, it seems like that could be a scenario quite a bit of the time, right? So, I mean, I'll low bid. If I can get it, I'll do it. If not, I'll say, oh, I can't do it. I'll make you uncomfortable as can be. And then if you try to go after my bond, I'll say, no, I'll get you.
I'm going to turn that over to legal counsel with that, Councilman Carbone. But with regards to that, we were doing it in conjunction with purchasing and with advisement of counsel.
I think one of the complications with the bid bond was that the second low bidder was not available, so we had to bump up to the third low bidder. Once we got to that point, we also recognize the economies of scale because of the project that was ending. So rather than risk any fight with the surety, we already knew that we were going to get savings or hope for savings with the economies of scale with the additional project that was coming up. So it made more sense to lump it together. I don't want to misstate for engineering, though, but.
All right. That was a very good response from legal. Thank you. Make up for that last comment.
Just a question, when we put these lines in, do we put them far enough back so that when we widen the roadway, we won't have to dig them out again? Lines out?
Mayor Reed, that is correct. We plan ahead for these, but a lot of these are already in roads that are existing and not being widened in the future. This
It'll be a
particular
while,
project,
but, yeah.
we had planned and we know where we want to locate these so that we don't have to move them again later.
Yeah, and I expected your answer to be yes, but I just thought of, sometimes the citizens kind of wonder, you're going to put it there and they'll dig it up later, so thank you for that remark. Councilor, any other question or comment?
Real quick one. When are you going back out for another round of bids on this project?
Our current project that we have in design right now is probably right about 75 to 85% design. We should be getting 90% plans in within the next 30 days, and then we'll package them both together and get out probably within the next 60 days.
Thank you.
What's the location of the other project?
The other project will, as per our capital improvement program, will continue from from Euler and Pearland Parkway up to John Lizer along Pearland Parkway, and then also through Independence Park and tie back into City Hall. It'll be a second loop and complete the loop to City Hall for redundancy.
Are we going to have to mobilize twice? Will the contractor need to mobilize twice since they're not close to each other?
That'll be part of their bid documents. Mobilization we've seen on these haven't been extravagant, but we'll have a line item for both MOB at both facilities.
Okay. Any other comment from council?
Just one comment. Going back out on this, I'm assuming that all the people bid on it knows what the bids are. Do you really think you're going to get a lower bid or a better bid on this?
I'm looking for economies of scale because we're adding basically doubling the length of this project. We're doubling the length of this project. So at twice as many linear footage. So we're looking at that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Secretary, we do have a motion second on the floor.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Little? Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Moving back to our agenda, item 6, matters removed from the consent agenda. Those were the two that were removed and have been resolved. Moved into new business. Item number 1 is Councilmember Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration of possible action, resolution number R 2019-30, so moved.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
This is something that, again, has been our capital improvement project, and this is design services for Orange Street, where we have significant operations, a project that's long in the making and probably overdue, and to ask Trent to outline that a little bit further for us.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Our Orange Street Service Center project, it's a multi-phase project to basically renew and update our 9-acre public works facility. And I know some of you had a chance to visit out there and see the multitude of buildings and the existing conditions they're in. We basically have about 12 plus separate buildings. They're in anywhere from poor to very poor condition and have been out there, some of them from the 60s. The original plan was to reuse and renovate some of those, and then we, of course, got into tearing some of the interiors out and found structural deficiencies in some of those buildings. So last year we kind of had to take a pause and step back and take a look at the overall site plan and the future phases of the project. So phase 1, the administration building, is planned to be under construction by the end of this summer. That'll be the Public Works Administration folks, as well as relocating the engineering and projects group from the trailers, the rented trailers we have at the Hill House site. And then Phase 2, which this design contract is associated with, is looking at an approximate 90,000 square foot building that'll consolidate those multitude of buildings that are out there. And that's all the operations buildings for Public Works. So all the different divisions that we have for Public Works, consolidating those into a large operations building with the appropriate training facilities as well as office facilities, plus many upgrades to the Public Works yard as well. These buildings will all meet our critical facilities design criteria so that they can be occupied and operational during hurricanes and other emergencies, so that we can have our Public Works personnel stationed there during high wind events and other situations like that. It'll include the appropriate technology similar to the EOC, have connectivity to the EOC, as well as appropriate cooking facilities and other facilities for an extended response when we get into those type of emergency response. One of the other things that this design is looking at doing, this contract has taken us through about 60% of design of this, and that's going to get us through all of our final site work, so we can identify exactly where we're going to relocate our underground storage tank farm. We're going to on the site, and we're going to go to an above ground tank farm, and that's something we need to do sooner rather than later, based on the condition of the existing tanks out there. So that's one of the purposes of getting this moving. As well as we'll complete the design next year and then move towards construction of the operations building. The funding is 60% water and sewer, and that's reflective of the makeup of the folks that will occupy and operate out of these buildings. And if you have any other questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
Good. Council, any question or comment on this item? Councilman Carbone?
Yeah, a couple. Just looking at the site plan, trying to wrap my head. Maybe Councilman Perez will have a better idea, but I guess looking at the open space requirement, are we meeting that? Because I'm not seeing much there.
We'll meet all the UDC requirements for the site.
Okay, including the meandering sidewalks.
I think the sidewalks were put in place with the Old Alvin project as well as the Orange Street project. So I believe they're existing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilor, any other future question or comment?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd just say that I'd move forward with the project. I'm glad that we identified some of the safety issues with the existing facilities, no longer utilizing those. That facility is very old and desperately in need of rehabilitation, so I'm glad that, again, we're moving forward with it. Again, just reiterate what Councilmember Carbone said, as long as we're treating our projects the same as we treat everybody else. So street tree requirements, sidewalk requirements, open space requirements, detention requirements, all of those things are incorporated, then then I would have no objection with us moving forward.
Councilor Little?
Looks like the design engineering on this project is about 11% of the total cost. Is that fairly standard for a project this size?
This is your program.
$2 million of $22 million total cost.
Can you provide the numbers you're referencing?
From the design, $1,950,000 of the total cost of the project, $22 million. It's on page 3 and 4 of 21. This seems a little high to me, but this is not my area of expertise.
Councilman Little, that's our design budgetary number that we use in our capital program. And so we're still in negotiation. So the first phase is what we have right now before you. And that'll get us up to, excuse me, as Mr. Epperson said, up to around 60%. And then we'll finalize the negotiation to get it from 60 to final plans. But please remember, that's just the formulation that we use as we go through. And then we'll continually update that as we finish negotiations for design contracts.
It was 11%, 10 or 11% of,
I'd say we're typically budgeting closer to 15% because it's not just the architectural design work, but
right,
it's
you
your
got geophysical studies and,
geotech, survey, plating. It encompasses all those things. And so we typically are budgeting closer to 15% typically.
also, it looks like at 22 million, what you budgeted for this project, 90,000 square feet, comes out to $244 a square foot. Seems pale in comparison to our $637 per square foot animal shelter. We're going to house people for $244 a square foot, and we're spending $637 on animals. I love my animals, but
Well, the square footage you're using is the entire lot. You can see it's a lot of storage and fleet. The building's a building, and there's nothing else in there. So,
okay, thank you.
Just going over the estimate we've got right here pretty quick. I see we got an architect in there, and then we got an architect intern 1, 2, and 3. And it seems like probably the interim architect 2 is loading quite a few hours in there, and the others aren't loading anything in it. But $110 an hour, I guess it is. And what does it show? About 900 and something hours on an intern, and not that much on the architect. But I see, a lot of support, CAD technician, and a lot of technical. The one thing I do have as a concern, and it's not that many hours, but it's a QA/QC manager that we're paying, $100, $190 an hour for them to go in and do the QA on their own plans. Like I say, there's only 16 hours in it, but when you pay somebody to go ahead and do that, and see what the price is on that one, it has on there. Like I say, it's not that much, about $3,000 to go in and do the QA/QC on their own set of plans. Is that pretty well typical now, that we have to pay them to go in and review their own plans?
Councilman Owen, is part of our requirement to make sure that they have quality assurance coming out, as we would with our contractors, that they have a quality assurance or quality control program themselves to make sure that they're providing that product to us. So we're not spending, it's not that we're not spending time, but when we review, we know that someone else has put the eyes on it within their department, and they are providing and have provided quality assurance to make sure that it's done to their standards as well. And then we review on top of that.
Yeah, I just wonder, because of the two main items we got in here is all lump sum. Probably 90% of the contract out of the deal is 5.2 million. I guess it would be 5 or actually 50,000, 500,000, excuse me, as a lump sum. Is there no reason that we're doing that on lump sum? Paying it out on a lump sum? We got the geotech at 20, surveying at 25, out of the total 657,500. But we're doing that total amount, schematic design phase 262, and design development phase 350. Those are lump sum. Why would we do them as lump sum? Any particular reason?
That's something that we've had built into our standard scope of contracts for any design work for many years. And, we of course scrutinize the amount of hours that's the basis of that and how that adds up to that lump sum. But it also means that they've got to provide us a full, complete design to our satisfaction without coming back and saying, well, we spent 10 more hours on this, or we spent an extra 50 hours on this, and asking for additional funds on that part of the design.
So we're still coming in, even though it's lump sum, we'll still come in by our staff to come in, review the plans at 30, 60, and 90.
Yes, sir. We, in the architectural work, we're reviewing at, of course, the programming stage, the schematic design development, construction drawings, and at multiple stages during the construction drawings. So yes, there's a multitude of points where we are reviewing and providing comments back on the architect's work.
Okay.
Any other comments from council? No comments. That's good. It's kind of sad to see the old fire station go away and some of the other buildings there. So kind of like, be nice to have the second generation come along here. We have a motion second on the floor, Mr. Secretary.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Perez,
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Aye.
Councilmember Little, Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Okay. Moving to new business item number 2, Councilmember Perez.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration of possible action, first reading of ordinance number 1571. So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had presented this a couple meetings ago, and council asked us to come back with some more research and options. With the construction and the impending opening of new roadway up from Manville Road, north of Broadway, we really need to consolidate the naming of those streets for the traveling public, for public safety, for the long haul. We just really need to streamline these. And if I could point, there's 2 good exhibits with options A and B on pages 7 and 8 of your packet. One of those shows Max Road, and the other roadway would be Reed Boulevard for the current and future phases of the construction. After council has to go back and look at it, we did look at some of the future construction and some of the ideas that were just bandied about. We did look at, but because of the configurations and getting into Brookside Village with Max Road and so forth, those are not feasible. So we're really left with these A and B options. Would also like to point out in the memo, we recounted and did some information on that table about the addresses. Not all of those are occupied with structures, and so we've got on page 2 a good count that just shows the number of actually address structures, to the best of our knowledge, for each of that option A and B, which is a little bit less than the total properties, just because of some vacancies that are in there. So, laid out those options, and looking forward to getting this up and signed, and ask for council's consideration to decide one way or another, so we can make this change.
Okay. Council have any comments? Start resolving this.
Well, Mayor, I think we have 2 people that would like to speak on this item.
Okay,
To
that's
speak
good.
before council.
We do have a couple of citizens that like to speak, and let us tell you which one is come first.
I guess Mr. Dean Gajewski is going first.
Yes.
If you would please speak your name, tell us your name and address for the purpose of the record. Please keep your comments 3 minutes. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Okay, thank you. Dean Gajewski. I live at 2239 Max Road. I have lived on Max Road for over 42 years. My parents live on Max Road. They bought their property in '69 and built their home. I certainly understand progress. Back when we moved to Pearland, Max Road was a dirt road. that was quite painful every time the wind was blowing when a car would pass by. So it shortly after that went to a gravel road, which we thought, we were saved. And it was like that for 10, 12 years. And then it was upgraded to an asphalt road, which was even better. And now with the new construction, it's a 2-lane concrete median road, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, changing the name of the street on a place that I've lived for 42 years comes with a tremendous financial burden as well as the mental anguish in having to change every document that I have, driver's license, bank statements, work-related paperwork, federal government, etc. George Gardner, who is unfortunately not here tonight, has a business on Max Road, Gardner Coatings. And again, it's a financial burden for him. We had presented a petition that a couple of weeks ago when the first reading was read about the name change. But again, him having to change his letterhead and his business cards and all of his contacts, I mean, again, it's a tremendous financial burden. It was unfortunate that I had to give up 60 feet of the frontage of my property for the expansion. It wasn't purchased because I had my property platted, so I had to deed that over to the city. Again, all in the name of progress, and that's fine. But again, changing the name, I think, is just, it's disrespectful to the legacy of Max Hernandez, who lived on Max Road. In fact, the property that my parents purchased, he lived on Max Road. I don't know the time dates, but it was over 50 years ago, and that's who the street was named after. He lived on the property, and he farmed the property on Max Road. That's all I have to say. I would just like to ask that you do the right thing by the residents, the long-term residents that have been on Max Road. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next, we have Mr. Manuel Lopez. You'll please state your name and address for the purpose of the record. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Hey, my name is Manuel Lopez. I live on 2215 Max Road. I came here about a month ago. I spoke in front of you all about this name change. A month ago, this was going to be addressed, and the residents of Max Road were expecting a letter from the city. We got no letter. Unfortunately, I was at my son's baseball practice earlier, and I had to step out and come here last minute. There was no letter, no notice, and anything at all. I've been walking down Max Road speaking to the residents, getting this petition signed. I've talked to George Gardner from the coating place. I've talked to Dean. I've talked to my neighbors. I've talked to people down the road, and everyone is very unhappy. Unfortunately, no one is coming to these hearings because it's an inconvenience. It really is an inconvenience to come here. I don't think anyone else other than Dean and I are being affected by this. I mean, like Dean said earlier, he has to, there's financial implications for us doing this. I have to change business documents, federal documents, licenses and stuff. And it's really a burden that I don't see why we have to take on. I'm like Dean, I donated 60% of my property as well, again, in the name of progress. But I mean, I just don't think this is the right thing. I think, like he said, it's disrespectful, and we would like more time and notice.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, that completes the amount of people that wish to speak on this item.
Nothing really to add, Mayor. Just point back again to the map and shows, well, as Manville Road comes up to Broadway and transitions there, to make it contiguous with what has been built and future I've got the A and B for your considerations. There is Max Road that remains, and that can't be tied into this because the configuration that starts just south of Future McCard and goes through Brookside Village. And then in Pearland, there's Old Max Court in both scenarios, just off of there, west of the Food Lion. So council's prerogative, but again, trying to look longer term and understand the immediate impact, but it'll only get worse over time as more gets built up in here and you get more addresses and more going forward. So that's part of the dilemma.
That completes staff report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Council, you want to care to make a comment on this item?
Yeah, on the blue line we got going through, that's Plan Max Road, Reed. It'll go across McCard. We're running parallel to Cullen Boulevard through there. And through that, and it doesn't seem like it's that much of a distance when you come off of the McCard extension through there to get to Cullen and going up. What's the, I guess I'm just asking, what's the purpose of running a new road up parallel on the blue line, the Plan Max Road? Then you got the Max Road. I mean, would that change, or is there something else you could call it?
So several years ago, when we were looking at north-south thoroughfares on our thoroughfare plan, we did some traffic modeling and some analysis of the north-south roadways between Cullen and Macawa. And we looked at the Max Road corridor extending up to the existing interchange at Beltway 8. And then we also looked at extending, I believe it was the O'Day corridor, to an existing interchange at Beltway 8. And so a couple things drove the decision and the changes in the thoroughfare plan at the time. One was the Max corridor had it had much more impact on the rest of our transportation network and the congestion that the model projected in the future on McCard Road and Cullen and that general area than O'Day did as far as bringing the level of service into a more acceptable range. So the Max corridor had a much better impact on improving the transportation network. And then the other thing was that through the Max corridor, you can see we looked at the alignment, slid that over closer to the Stone Road corridor, thereby keeping it out of the jurisdiction of Brookside Village, whereas O'Day would have to run right through Brookside Village, and they were opposed to any of these roadways, including McCard, intruding into their boundaries at all. So those were the two things that drove the decision to change the thoroughfare plan at that point to where you see it today.
Okay, that I always had some discussion on Pearland being a cut-through city for everybody else. I mean, you've got 288 Cullen, now this one, Macawa, 35, Pearland Parkway, Dixie Farm Road. So we're continuously being a cut-through city from people that are south of us. And I'm sorry they have to go through the delays or whatever to get through the city if they go on Cullen or what have you. But, personally, I think, that these two property owners and others there that have given up right away for that. And then there is a problem that coming in and changing all the documents and forms, that's additional cost through it. Is there any way that, I guess with this blue line here, the Plan Max Road, do you call it Max Road and leave Max Road in the purple the way it is now and put it in as a new one? And one other thing don't have much to do with this, but I want to ask it because I got two calls the other day asking why we don't put the block numbers on any of our roadways. And people say that when they're coming down and they want to go to certain places, they have to drive real slow on 518 to look at the businesses and see what the block numbers are in order to do that. But after I got those calls, well then, Kirby has no block numbers on it or anything up and down the roadways now. It has block numbers. I'm not saying every time, but yet and still, on every road they cross, but it would be good to have block numbers, I think, and I don't know if that's a cost prohibitive type thing or we just don't do it. You got an answer? But I said I would ask the question. This is about the only time I could ask it, if we could do it.
Yeah.
You're talking about block numbers on all the street signs?
Yeah.
Okay. We haven't done that in the past. I don't, I think with today's technology, I don't know how cost effective it is to go out there and retrofit all of our signs with block numbers.
Well, one individual was coming down 518 and is wanting to find out, on the block where they need to turn, and they said they had just to slow down in traffic. I guess it's a good way to slow traffic down. Look at the building to see if they had had numbers on the buildings for the address. The other one's going down Kirby.
I think one of the other obstacles you're going to have there is the TMUTCD, the Texas Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices, has changed the size of sign blanks and the font size, the lettering size that you have to have nowadays on the signs. I would assume that that may play into why you don't see those as prevalently as you did in the past. Is that if you don't meet the minimum font size, then your sign's not compliant with the manual on uniform traffic control devices. But we can check into that.
Okay, I appreciate it. But I don't know the blue line on here that shows coming up from 518 going north. Is there any reason to change the name of that?
We think there is. I mean, that's, sort of the point. The old Max Court is dead ends, and, I think this road will be extended at least to McCard Road. I mean, I guess I hear you. What's the status of the north of McCard? That hasn't been in the tip, or that's future, right?
It's on our thoroughfare plan as well, as well as the portion from Hughes Ranch to McCard. They're both on our thoroughfare plan. Neither one of those are programmed in the CIP or funded at this point. We did look at different options for keeping it Max Road. Of course, the portion in Brookside Village down to just south of McCard is all Max Road and would remain Max Road. We did make an inquiry with Brookside as far as their acceptance or working with us on possibly changing that name. They said they would consider a change between McCard and Brookside Road. But then you're just creating another road there that's got multiple names. And I think when we work with fire and police, that drives a lot of our decisions on trying to get these streets named consistently in one name, like when we worked with the county and Manville to get Magnolia Parkway, County Road 59, South Fork, all named Magnolia Parkway. That's kind of the same thing behind this is for our partners in the police department and fire department and EMS, the emergency responders, that we've got good, clean, clear, accurate addresses and road names so they know where they're responding to.
It's not just our staff. I mean, if somebody gets into accident, is making a call, 911, trying to get that, as much as possible, if that's clear and doesn't get confused up. So
It's kind of like 35, Telephone Road, 35 and Main Street. Take your choice. Which one are you using? Just thought I'd ask a question. Appreciate it.
Of the two options you have in your presentation, either calling it all Reed Road or all Manville Road, to To me, Mammal Road makes the most sense because it's a continuation of an existing roadway. Why don't we have as an option calling it from 518 to Beltway 8, Max Road, and then renaming the purple part and the yellow part something else?
I think that gets into the Brookside jurisdiction, and we wouldn't be able to tell them how they're going to name theirs. I mean, that's the guts of it, right?
That's correct. That purple portion, you know, almost all of that is in Brookside Village, and where they indicated that they would possibly look at a change from McCard to Brookside Road, north of Brookside Road, they indicated they would leave it as Max.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, the Manville Road option would extend it from the longest stretch, so.
Well, that's another example. Manville, I know, is 1128. So, I mean, it's I got a bunch of different names.
I'm sorry.
Were you sorry?
Go ahead.
So looking at the where this is coming out on the Beltway 8, that little connection up there, is that the future MLK connection? Is that what that will eventually be?
That's okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I guess I kind of, at least for now, maybe share a similar concern with Member Owens. I know that this is the plan, but I don't necessarily see, living off of Cullen, I don't necessarily see that this is maybe a priority in my opinion. I don't know why we couldn't just tie into the Max Road as it is and lock into McCard as that goes by in the future, but I don't know. Just I don't know if providing another cut through, for the future City of Houston MLK road is necessarily the best vision in my opinion, but that's all I have for at least for now.
What was the basis behind the comments from fire and police department?
Consistency of names on roads instead of roads with multiple names is much easier for them to respond and know where they're responding. And I think, I don't know if either of them have anything to add, but they're here as well.
It's easier to find the location for service.
Yes, sir. All we care about is whether or not the road's named consistently. Helps us know where we're going, helps us get there more quickly.
Same with fire.
Any more comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do remember when we worked through this a modification of the thoroughfare plan. We as a council asked specifically for this adjustment because we knew we couldn't control the expansion of Max into Brookside Village. I mean, from a traffic engineering standpoint, you need to cut through. The people are going to come through our city regardless. It's whether you want to congest them all into one road or not. Right now, they're coming up Cullen. Cullen gets congested. Eventually, as more people want to come through, as Alvin grows, they're going to want to come up Max, and they're going to congest Cullen even further. So from a thoroughfare standpoint, we have to have a plan. This was the compromise plan that gave us control of the corridor all the way up to the Beltway. Of the two options, I'd prefer it to be Manville, so it's a contiguous road. But I don't want to concede that yet because I think we've had some informal conversations with Brookside, probably staff, and they've said, look, here's what staff would like to do. What I would say, ideally, if we had the whole control over it, Old Max Court would not be Old Max Court. We could call that Reed Road because that road is of no consequence to anybody. It's just there to get for the Waffle House to be able to have access to the west. The portion of Max that was in with Brookside Village, that could be Old Max Road, and then from 518 to the Beltway could be Max. But that can only work if Brookside's willing to do that. And I think an appropriate mechanism, if this council is willing to try and explore that, is to pass a resolution where we're officially requesting Brookside Village's council to consider that option give us a response from their council.
Mhm.
And if they are unwilling to do it, then we choose from the two options that we have. We can't have two parallel max roads. You're correct in identifying that problem. If Brookside will not willing to do that, then I think we pick from the two options we have, and my pick would be Manville. But I'm not ready to concede quite yet that that we can't. There's not logic in trying to find a path that is similar to what I just stated.
Does naming it Reed Road bring it out to an underpass on 288? Does it bring it out between two underpasses?
Mayor, could you restate your question? The road is ultimately, long-term, would go underneath and connect to what would be on the other side of that, which would be MLK, according to the long-term plan, but right now, there's nothing there.
I have a question, Mayor. Why is it that we're not continuing on with the name of the road when the way it is in Houston as MLK?
You can
That's
keep on with
another
color.
option for consideration. I think we started as a staff from Reed Road because that's what the extension of FM 1128 is, north of 518. And with the recognition of not being able to change Max Road within Brookside Village, we made, our best option recommendations as far as what we saw as options. I think kind of because we were starting from that end looking north, and it'll be a long time probably before we're tied in at the Beltway. And we also then considered the Manville Road option.
I mean, this isn't Manville. I
agree.
To me, I have a huge problem with the fact that we run Kirby all the way down, we run Cullen all the way down, whatever other streets we run down from Houston, we take on that name. But for some reason, we're going to change the name right here. I mean, unless we're going to keep it at Reed Road, in honor of Mayor Reed, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be, MLK Boulevard continuously all the way through. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I think
I'm not looking for a response. I'm just saying that I think that's I think that's something that staff and that we should look at as a council.
Well, I think what we're considering right now is whether it remain Max at the citizens who live on Max roads, or do we change the name? If we choose to change the name, then we can introduce the debate of what we change it to. Right now, we have a number of citizens who reached out to us and asked us to honor their existing address on Max. I think we need to vet through whether we want to change Max or not before we even consider what we're going to change the name to.
It seems like we're going to have to change the name anyways.
Well, I think if we get something from Brookside that says they are unwilling to change Max to Old Max, if we pass a resolution requesting that of them, and their council says no, we're unwilling to do that, then our hand is forced. We have to change Max because we cannot have two Max roads parallel to each other, and we cannot make Brookside do it. So at that point, at least as I see it, we have to change the name. Unfortunately for the citizens, we just don't have control over the roadway name as they parallel each other. And then we can debate what we want to name it to.
And I would be in favor of that as well, going to Brookside first to give us at least a better pathway forward. If they say yes or no, it gives us a little better understanding of our future, I suppose.
So we're going to ask another city to change the name of their road so we don't have to change the name of ours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's
Just don't build a road.
but our road's not even built, right?
A portion of it's built. That's where we connected Reed Road to Max, which is driving this.
Small portion is built. The plan, that long blue portion is a huge portion of it. Planned phase 2, phase 1. I mean, so a lot of it's not built.
Yeah.
We're gonna go tell this other city that whose road's already built change their name?
Well, our road's already built as well. Our max is already built. What the citizens are asking us to do is consider keeping the name in order to honor the request of the citizens who live on existing Max Road in Pearland. It would require us to ask Brookside if they would be willing to change their name. It would be a polite request. If they said no, then we'd have to deal with the consequence of it. I don't
You got to go through
So-
this.
I don't think that's a big issue.
I think it is. I mean, it just, I don't know, to go and kind of, box out another city, but neither here nor there. At the end of the day, I think we really should look at the strong possibility of making that a continuous street once it's all the way through. And keeping the MLK name all the way down. I'm not sure, obviously, I probably won't be on council when the actual street, gets built, but I don't see any reason why we can't consider that. Manville Road is I don't even know why we would call it Manville Road.
Well, we call it Manville because it's continuous with the existing.
I'm
road
not
in
looking for a
Pearland.
response. I'm saying this.
Well, I'm trying to give you a response, so you're educated.
No, I'm very educated. What I'm
Manville is
telling
our
you-
existing road. We're going to connect it with existing road. There's a roadway to the north that doesn't exist.
I don't need your response, really. I'm just giving my
trying to
opinion.
help you out.
Yeah, no, I'm very educated, more than you. When I say this,
Clearly.
all I need to know, all I want to say is that I think we should definitely consider that when going all the way down from MLK all the way through the city, to consider keeping it the same the way that it was before.
Well, again, rather than introducing another problem into this issue, why don't we deal with the first one, which is, can we continue to have it remain as max? If you're insisting it should not be max to be MLK, then you can vote against the resolution. But my request is that we ask Brookside Village, at the behest of the citizens who've asked us to have it remain max, the citizens we serve, they've asked us to have it, find a way to solve their problem, which is to remain max, so they don't have to change all their addresses, so they don't have to change all their driver's license, so they don't have to change all their business cards. And I think that's worthy of us exploring on the behest of our citizens. If it is a polite request, as we've asked Alvin ISD in a previous resolution to request taking on Fort Bend ISD students, I think it's a polite request for us to go to Brookside and say, would you be willing to consider this? If they say no, and we can't make them do it, then we consider our options from there. I don't see why that's objectionable. One of the options could be changing it to MLK.
Tony, I see your light come on green.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I don't know that we're going to have any luck with Brookside, but I think it's worth asking. I'd love to be able to keep this max. As we discussed last time, if we did change that small portion that's now Reed Boulevard to max, that affects at most maybe one business. So if there's any way to work that out, I'd like to do that. And I think with what a few councilmen have suggested and formally requesting Brookside to respond to renaming their Max Road, I think it's a long shot, but I think it's a shot worth taking to help save the citizens of Pearland that much hassle.
I make a motion, we table this agenda item in order to give staff time to confer with Brookside about renaming Max Road.
Before we second that, from the attorney, from our city attorney, can we pass a resolution or request a resolution now to request that from Brookside, or does that have to be a separate agenda item?
That'll have to be a separate item.
So we would table today, and then we'd have a separate item.
Sir.
Another option may be to prepare a letter from the mayor to send to Brookside Village. Staff's already had the discussion, so I think at this point it does need to be in the form of a resolution or possibly a letter from the mayor making that formal request. That would be an option where we don't have to bring back another.
Could we pass a resolution tonight to just name the whole thing Max Road, subject to Brookside's renaming? That way we're done if they approve it. That'd be a minor tweak to the current resolution.
that we'd have to come up with a name for Old Max Court, because that can't be Old Max Court anymore.
Can council answer this question?
Lawrence, if I may,
Yes.
this is an ordinance, so this is the first reading of an ordinance. I think you can provide us recommended, you could approve it on the first reading and come back with a change, correct?
We can. What I'm trying to balance is Councilmember Reed's request and Councilmember Carbone's. The issue being, we don't know what the name would be if Brookside doesn't come back, because at least some members on council want it to be the extension of MLK versus, as you had suggested, Mandel.
If I'm not mistaken, when we done Cullen going north up to 518, and that used to be Old Chocolate. So what we took the side street and made it Old Chocolate, and then run Cullen all the way through on that. I think, if we're going to do another reading on it, leave it as it is and make the the conversation with Brookside and see what we can do there. But I hate to see that somebody's giving up property and additional cost and giving up property through there, and then also additional cost for everything else that they're going to have to do. I think that's a heck of a commitment out of the residents there.
Mr. Epperson, did you say that staff had already had communications with Brookside about changing the name
Yes, sir.
and no progress, or?
The response was that they would be open to a change between McCard and Brookside Road, but north of Brookside Road, they would not change the name.
Thank you.
So it's basically from the brown dot to McCard? That little spot?
No, it'd be from the pink line that's McCard up about halfway between McCard and the Beltway.
Brookside.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir, where Brookside Road is.
Give you any reason for that?
No, I don't. I didn't have the direct conversation, so we'd have to go back and see if they gave any reason.
What are we voting on?
The educated ones.
You have a
But nobody seconded.
second on that?
Nobody seconds.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second
What
to
would be-
postpone.
What table?
The table.
He did table, not,
Table.
well, they're different.
What do you- Trying to figure out whether the motion is postpone or table. Who did?
Councilmember Little?
Little, okay. Did I get a second from that? Okay. We do have a motion and a second.
Councilmember Reed did the second. We have a motion and a second.
One of these guys seconded up here.
Ready?
We have a motion and a second to.
Motion and second to table, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion second to table.
Yes.
Can I ask to win? Because, I mean, we've got two citizens that have spoke out. This is the second time they've been here. And I don't know that we're putting, I don't know what type of notice we give them, but
The win that I heard was until we hear back officially from Brookside on our request to have the name changed. I don't know if that's going to be after we come back with another resolution for the entire council to make that request to Brookside, or whether that could be through a letter from the mayor. Either way, that issue needs to get resolved before we bring this back.
okay. I guess I would ask the city secretary's office, since we've had two speakers, if once we know it's coming back on the agenda, if you'd reach out to them just to let them know out of courtesy that it's coming back, and then they can get out to the neighbors.
That, motion second on the floor, Mr. Secretary.
Councilmember Little? Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0. Table.
Would staff explain that to everybody with a memo to kind of bring us up to date on where we're heading on that? Just for clarification for the next meeting. Moving in our agenda to item number 8, it says adjourn, which I shall do at 8:45.